I have someone who needs me. Haven't I provided for you enough? I need you to write me a divorce agreement with these terms.
My husband said this to me and handed me a divorce agreement. We had been together for 30 years, and yet he treated me this way. But my husband still hasn't realized that I won't just silently back down. I'm a 57-year-old housewife. It's been 32 years since I married my husband. We have a daughter named Layla. But even though we have a child, I never thought I would be married to my husband for so long. I met my husband at work. I met him at the company where I started working after graduating from vocational school. My husband had always had a somewhat eye-catching personality. I felt that right away when I joined the company. He's not extremely handsome or anything, but he seems attractive somehow. He was my trainer when I first joined. When we were together, it was a lot of fun, and I felt excited. I even used work-related questions as an excuse to invite him for drinks. That's how we gradually got closer, and he confessed his feelings to me, and we started dating. I was thrilled to be dating the person I admired. And from there, we dated for about 3 years. We even lived together, and I thought we could continue like this forever. Then he proposed, and we decided to get married. Our relationship had been smooth sailing, so there were no issues. When you date for such a long time, you naturally get to know each other's families. So when we went to announce our marriage, they accepted right away. His parents were easygoing, saying something like,
"Oh, that's no problem at all. Go ahead and get married."
They were such understanding in-laws that I never experienced any harassment after marriage. In fact, I got along very well with my mother-in-law. She had 2 sons, including my husband, but she had wanted a daughter, so she treated me like a real daughter. Because of that, I visited my in-laws regularly with my husband, and we built a very good relationship. I got along well with my in-laws, but my relationship with my husband was becoming increasingly distant over the years. That's because my husband held on to the old-fashioned belief that housework was the wife's responsibility, and that childcare was solely the mother's duty. I had been troubled by this. Before we had children, I was working a regular job too, so I started work at nearly the same time as my husband, and our return home times were also similar. Despite this, my husband never helped with household chores at all. Even if I asked him to help a little, he wouldn't listen at all.
"I'm tired from work. Isn't that the wife's job?"
He started saying such things suddenly after we got married, and I was taken aback. During our dating days, he was a gentleman who treated me kindly. So why did he change so suddenly? Well, maybe this is his true nature. Perhaps he concealed his true self when we were dating, believing that once we were married, he didn't need to provide anymore. I suppose that's what it's all about. I was quite shocked, but when we just got married, so I couldn't consider divorce right away. And I didn't want to part with my in-laws, with whom I had a good relationship. And at the time, the disillusioned part was just more noticeable. It wasn't that everything was completely wrong. On weekends, he would take me on drives, suggest going on trips together as a couple, and genuinely try to make time for us as husband and wife. The main issue was that he left all the housework to me. Well, that was the worst part. But I decided I couldn't expect a perfect marriage from the start. So I tried to accommodate him. I managed to balance work and household chores without overexerting myself. Fortunately, he never complained when I made pre-prepared meals, so that helped. With that, I thought we could somehow make our married life work, and I lived each day with that mindset. Then, around 3 years after we got married, I became pregnant with our daughter. It was my first pregnancy, so there were many things I wasn't sure about. But with the support of my mother-in-law and others, I had a safe childbirth, and we named our daughter Layla. Layla was incredibly cute, like an angel. My husband was also very happy when he saw Layla for the first time. However, my husband wasn't cooperative when it came to childcare. "Oh, can you change the diaper for a moment? I'm using the stove right now and can't let go."
Huh? I don't want to. It's smelly, and I don't really know how to do it. You are the mother. You should take responsibility.
But reluctantly, I paused my cooking and changed our daughter's diaper. However, our daughter started crying loudly, so I had to comfort her for a while. As a result, about 15 minutes had passed since I interrupted my cooking. The dish I had paused was still in the middle of preparation, so even if I resumed, it wouldn't turn out quite as I had intended. My husband complained about dinner being late. I've thought so many times, if that's the case, then you should have changed the diaper yourself. Again, it seemed like my husband didn't like that I prioritized our daughter.
Hey, haven't you cleaned the bath yet?
"Oh, I'm sorry. I haven't done it yet because I was fretting about Layla."
What's the matter? I wanted to take a bath since I sweated a lot.
"Well, you should have cleaned it yourself."
What did you say? That's all your job as a wife, isn't it?
Are you sure you even know how to clean the bath properly?
Don't make fun of me. I can clean the bathroom too, you know.
In this way, my husband would often pick arguments. However, he didn't actually know how to clean the bath, and he stood there frozen, not knowing what to do in the bathroom. "Oh? Maybe you really can't do it." When I laughed like that, my husband looked frustrated.
Of course. I can't do something I haven't been told.
"That's why I told you to do it. So are you willing to make an effort to learn?" It's pointless to keep telling someone who has no intention to learn, isn't it?
Well,
It seems that my husband finally realized he had made an unfair statement.
well, my bad. But please don't neglect the household chores.
After saying this, my husband returned to his room. After that, he never actually did the chores himself, but it seemed like the frequency of his complaints decreased. Later on, our daughter continued to grow and eventually started walking and speaking. I was so happy when she ran up to me and said, "Mommy." She was so sweet and loving that I swore to protect her for the rest of my life. My husband used to be affectionate toward our daughter when she was younger, and I think he had some interest in parenting. In reality, most of the actual care was left to me. As our daughter continued to grow, she progressed through kindergarten and elementary school. She enjoyed her days and would tell me about her experiences at school. I had quit my job after giving birth, so I had spent a lot of time with her, making it easy for us to communicate. However, our daughter didn't open up much to my husband, and I believed it was because of him. When my husband returned from work, he often seemed grumpy, so meal times were usually silent. My daughter couldn't talk to him much either. But then, there were times when he was in a very good mood and talked excessively to our daughter, leaving her confused about how to respond. I raised my concerns to him about his inconsistent behavior. "Can you stop changing your attitude towards our child based on your mood? Try to be as kind as possible to our daughter. Otherwise, Layla won't know how to react." Upon hearing this, my husband opened his eyes wide and got angry.
Huh? Why should I have to adapt to you and her? I've been working hard to support your lives. How I choose to spend my time at home is my business.
My husband expressed his anger in this way. This argument might have been the biggest one we had since our daughter was born. My husband said this and stormed out of the house. Given my emotional state, I was relieved that he left the situation. He didn't come back home that day. The next day, it seemed he went to work from somewhere else, and he returned home a few days later in the evening. We barely spoke as a couple during that time. and I think it was about a week before we had a proper conversation. We didn't exactly reconcile, but I felt that I had been overly tense in front of our daughter. So I initiated the conversation, and he gradually started responding, and we began to talk normally again. After that, I didn't expect much from my husband. I focused on raising our daughter to be a good child. I took charge of keeping track of her school affairs, arranging for cram schools and private tutors when she wanted them. When money became tight, I took on part-time jobs to make ends meet. I took good care of her that way, and she grew up to be a very good girl. She managed to attend a prestigious high school and later secured a good job at a large company. My daughter, who was a little girl just a few days ago, is now a working adult. I really think that the time flies by so fast. When she started working, she moved out of our home and began living on her own. So, my husband and I were left with an empty nest. Despite everything that had happened before, I found myself becoming more forgiving, and there were considerably fewer arguments. I had been working part-time in an office job since our daughter entered high school, and recently, I've been offered a chance to become a full-time employee. I'm currently contemplating whether to accept it or not. It's a regular job with good conditions, and the salary would significantly improve. However, when I discussed it with my husband, he opposed the idea.
What about household chores and meals? I don't want it to be delayed again.
I will manage that properly.
No, it's still not okay. You can say anything with just words. Once you take on this role, it will be difficult to go back to being a part-timer. It's not like our life is difficult right now, so why not stay as a part-timer?
This is how my husband opposed my promotion to a full-time position. I could have argued back at this point, but it would have caused a lot of trouble. Well, my husband was right. Our life wasn't particularly challenging, so I thought it was fine. I apologized to the company for not accepting their offer and continued as a part-timer. A few years passed in the blink of an eye, and several years went by without any significant changes in our life together. We continued with the same routine day in and day out. In the midst of this, our daughter announced that she was getting married. It was quite a big piece of news, and both my husband and I were surprised. Her husband seemed like a wonderful and trustworthy person. We had a successful meeting between the two families, and the wedding was a beautiful event. Seeing our daughter so happy made me incredibly happy. Then, about 2 years later, our daughter announced that she was pregnant. I was incredibly surprised by the news and looked forward to becoming a grandmother. She had been working, but she wanted to take maternity leave early and return to her parents' home to prepare for the birth. However, when my husband heard this, his expression darkened slightly.
Is it okay for your husband to handle household chores and such?
Oh, it's perfectly fine. We both worked and shared household duties when we were living together. He can manage life on his own without any problems.
I see.
I felt like my husband was somewhat opposed to the idea of our daughter coming back home. Is there something wrong?
Huh? What do you mean?
Well, it just feels like you're opposing her decision to come back home for the childbirth.
No, it's not like that.
My husband was clearly flustered. In times like this, my husband is hiding something. It seems our daughter noticed it too. Is there something wrong?
I've told you there's nothing. Stop insisting.
My husband's expression turned sour.
Fine. Do whatever you want, including giving birth at your parents' place.
Eventually, he said this in a resigned manner. Whenever my husband's mood soured, he would react like this. But at this point, neither I nor my daughter cared. Responding to him every time was exhausting, so our daughter quickly packed her belongings and temporarily moved back to our house. During that time, I spent leisurely days cooking with her. In the midst of this, My daughter asked me about something. Did Dad use hair products and stuff? Huh? I noticed there are various items added to Dad's shelf in the bathroom, like these wipes to wipe off sweat. I've never seen him use anything like this before. Now that you mention it, you're right. I hadn't noticed until my daughter pointed out. I guess I was indifferent to it. Then, I thought that maybe the reason my husband didn't want our daughter to live with him was related to this. Maybe he's hiding something. Could it be that he didn't want you to find out about it, which is why he was hesitant about your return for the childbirth? It seems like it definitely related to women. Men, who aren't usually concerned about fashion and grooming, suddenly starting to care usually means something is up. Huh? But he's almost 60 now. Well, there are women who are interested in much older men, and with financial stability. There are women who would be interested in him too. I see. How about we confront him a bit? Huh? My daughter said that, and called my husband into the living room that evening.
What's this about? What do you want to talk about?
Dad, you're having an affair, right?
What? An affair?
Yeah, my classmate saw you.
Must be a mistake. Maybe your classmate confused me with someone else?
No, she said it was definitely you.
There are no photos or anything to support that claim.
Dad, why haven't you denied it even once since earlier?
Huh?
Normally, if you weren't having an affair, you would say I'm not having an affair, right? But Dad, your initial response was about how it might be a case of mistaken identity. That sounds like you're having an affair, but want to make sure it's not discovered. That's what that response suggests, right?
That's just a stretch.
I think it might be better to confess now while you have the chance. It might result in lower settlement fees, don't you think? When my daughter said that, my husband confessed.
I have someone who needs me.
I was surprised by his words. Wait, are you admitting it?
Yeah, I'm having an affair, but we truly love each other.
Dad, that's terrible. Betraying mom like this. My husband looked annoyed and said to me,
I've provided enough for you. I will pay alimony and property division. It adds up to about $53,000. Please write the divorce agreement with these terms.
He said this and handed me a divorce agreement. I don't know when he prepared it. I guess he had it in his bag the whole time. Despite being together for 30 years, was he willing to treat me this way? But he still hadn't realized that I wouldn't just silently accept this. Fine, I will agree to the divorce.
Is that so? Good. With this, I can be with her without any worries. To be honest, being with you, except for doing household chores, has been tiresome. I'm going to have fun with a younger woman in this house, so get out of here soon.
My husband had a triumphant look on his face as he laughed. It seemed like he had completely forgotten about the incident. But that was better. I quickly wrote up the divorce agreement and submitted it. My husband went to his affair partner's place for a while and waited for us to move out. I immediately changed the locks on the house. About a week later, the intercom at home rang multiple times. Hello? Who is it?
It's me. What the hell are you doing?
Oh, is this a sales visit or some kind of prank? Please stop this.
Don't mess with me. It's me.
My husband was shouting angrily through the intercom. Beside him, there was a young woman.
Why did you change the locks without permission and occupy the place? Get out of my house!
My husband yelled like that. I calmly responded, You seem to have forgotten, but this house is in my name.
Huh?
Isn't this a house I inherited from my father when he passed away? How could you mistake it for your house? It seemed like he suddenly remembered, and his face turned pale. What the hell is going on? You told me you own a house in a prime location in New York. We got married and now you're telling me this is fraud. I'm breaking up with you, just an old man. The woman he was having an affair with said that angrily and left the scene. She had committed adultery herself, yet she was acting selfishly. Well, considering she got into such a relationship with a man about 40 years her senior, and even married him for money, she must have taken quite a hit. It's likely to become a dark chapter in her life. The husband, who was left behind, approached me, seeking help, feeling quite isolated.
Come on, let me in.
What? Why should I let a complete stranger into my house?
We were still a couple, right?
We are divorced now, so you're practically a stranger.
But we are parents to the same child, so we are still family, right?
Dad, please stop. I don't consider you my father anymore. Let's use this opportunity to cut ties.
Layla, please don't say such sad things.
For now, you've been lingering here for a while, and it's becoming bothersome. Could you please leave? Or should I call the police?
What? The police?
After hearing those words, my ex-husband hastily fled. At his age, getting into legal trouble would be disastrous, especially given the financial strain caused by property division and alimony. So he couldn't afford any additional expenses. After that, I hired a lawyer to claim compensation from my ex-husband and his affair partner. I ensured that their wages would be garnished if they failed to pay, so there shouldn't be any issues with receiving the payments. My ex-husband had already lost his home, and even his own brother had abandoned him, mainly because I had informed them about his affair beforehand. As a result, my ex-husband ended up living alone in a rundown old apartment. Currently, he seems to be experiencing loneliness while spending his days simply repaying his debts. On the other hand, I had a peaceful time during my stay at my parents' house, finally getting the chance to meet my long-awaited grandchild. Furthermore, my daughter and her husband purchased an apartment nearby to our family home. Now, we regularly meet with my daughter's family and grandchild, enjoying happy days together.